We've been talking so much, obviously, about Governor Perry's indictment. We've got Jay Root here with Texas Tribune to talk about some of the long-term implications. We appreciate it so much, obviously, chronicling the governor's previous run for the White House in your book. But the events of the last week, and then, of course, going to the political theater that we saw late yesterday afternoon, just put a ribbon around some of your thoughts as we stand right now.
Well, what struck me yesterday was when Perry got booked was I stood next to another reporter, and he said, I've never been to a booking rally. They turned this into a political rally. I've never seen that. So in the short term, I think that Rick Perry, despite being booked on these very serious felony charges, has turned this into a PR opportunity.
It's kind of amazing to see, regardless of your take on it, that we saw, I guess, when the governor first spoke over the weekend that he was going to go on the offensive about this. But he certainly, you see the level to which he's been taken, like you said, turning into a rally yesterday.
Right, and these are very serious charges, and we haven't seen one lick of evidence, so we don't know what really is in this case. We've seen the indictments. They're pretty thin. The indictments don't have a lot of information in them, but that doesn't mean, look, there were 44 witnesses apparently. The grand jurors have spoken out a little bit in some newspaper articles. One said the perception of this is going to change when the facts come out. So there's a long way to go here.
Setting that aside briefly as much as we can, in the meantime, we've reported this morning the governor is going on to New Hampshire. We know why political candidates tend to go to New Hampshire. So it seems like he's trending toward another run for the White House. How does this play nationally in the short term?
Well, in the short term has been good. He's had a lot of people rally around him. Some of his would-be challengers in a 2016 race, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, others have come to his defense and said this is ridiculous, this is a political prosecution. But long term, if there's a trial, for example, if this goes to trial, I mean, how do you stand in a criminal trial and run for president at the same time? It's very, very difficult.
That would be incredibly difficult. If there weren't to be a trial somehow, then suddenly this has been a part of, and as you know better than anybody, a massive reboot the governor needed to do on the heels of 2012.
Right, the timing for Rick Perry, this is terrible timing. Let's just be honest about it. I mean, nobody wants to have indictment next to your name in the newspaper. And this came at a time when he was really rebuilding, and there was a lot of fawning national coverage of this.
Jay, you mentioned terrible timing. A very interesting take you have as we get back to state politics for Republicans and Democrats on someone else that really this is bad timing for.
It's bad timing for Wendy Davis.
And you wouldn't think that.
The Democrat running for governor, because she had just come out with this ad. She got a lot of attention on it about a sexual assault in a case that Greg Abbott, her opponent, ruled on when he was on the Supreme Court, and that's just gone. Nobody's talking about that anymore. She's been putting out press releases. Everything's been ignored. And when a Democrat is not being paid attention to, then the Republican wins, because the Republican's probably going to win in Texas. So she needs to have some focus, and nobody's focusing right now.
Precious time. We're 2 months and change away. And like
right.
you said, it's just the vortex of all that news. But this whole situation could put Greg Abbott in a tough position as well, potentially.
He's got a hot potato on his hands as well, because he is going to have to rule on whether or not taxpayers are going to have to pick up the tab for Rick Perry's private legal bills. He's got five lawyers, really nationally known lawyers, some of them, on his team. It's not going to be cheap.
And we will certainly continue to talk about this. I'm sure your head's been spinning since late Friday afternoon. You'll stay on it. Jay Root, Texas Tribune. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.